If we haven't met before, I'm Sarah, an end-of-life planning advocate normalizing conversations about end-of-life and estate planning before those conversations are necessary. Some people talk about estate planning like it's overwhelming, scary, or confusing. My goal here is to be honest and direct about estate planning, so I'll just say it. It can be. Many estate planning resources, myself included at times, make estate planning sound so easy and straightforward. Just write your will, consider your legacy, and document all of your accounts and passwords, and just like that, you're done. But estate planning can be overwhelming. I realize I can be pretty blasé about end-of-life planning. I'm used to it. I'm also dealing with concepts largely in the abstract, not really thinking about specific people with lives and deaths and people who will miss them. But it's not lost on me that estate planning is the perfect storm of challenging emotions. It sucks in every charged and difficult part of our lives and makes us consider, face, and in some cases, document them. Death, illness, decline, incapacitation, losing control, or losing independence. It makes you consider your people mourning you and moving on without you. You have to deal with money or financial issues, maybe family secrets like past relationships, or that you might have favorites or people that you might want excluded. You might have to deal with memories of past family members declining and dying, religion and the afterlife, your legacy and how you want to be remembered. Working on your estate plan might also mean that you have to give up your belief that you'll live forever. You're losing your optimism for eternal youth. It's a lot. There's a reason most estate planning attorneys stock up on Kleenex for their offices. Don't be surprised if you shed a few tears during the process. Get family support and talk to a therapist or spiritual advisor to address issues that are brought up while planning. Estate planning can also be overwhelming because the terms and documents aren't consistent. Many estate planning terms are legal and specific. They often vary by state. Two people facing similar situations in different locations might use forms with different names to do the exact same thing, or they might use forms with the same name to do different things. And each estate attorney has their own process for setting up your plan. Every probate court has its own processes and forms. I mostly understand this stuff, and even I sometimes get confused when looking at one resource or another, unsure of what they're talking about, only to realize that the author is based in Louisiana or New York or somewhere where they have different names for the things that I'm used to seeing. A prime example of this is the living will / advanced care directive / healthcare agent / medical power of attorney. Every state has a process to document your wishes for medical care and a way to appoint a person to act on your behalf and make medical choices for you. But everyone calls the form something different, making it impossible for me or any resource to simply tell you, look for a document called X, Y, and Z. We can give you general information, but we can't give you detailed or specific guidance. There are just too many variables. And even when you decide to do something, it only raises a dozen more questions. You can decide you absolutely want to put a payable death deed on your house, but then what? How do you actually do it? Do you need an attorney? Do you just file something with the court? Does it impact your mortgage? I can tell you what that process might look like in my county, but that likely won't help you much. I know, that was a heck of a pep talk, but stick with me here because even though estate planning can be overwhelming, you should do it anyway. It might be tempting to throw up your hands and say, I don't want to deal with it. But you saying, I can't be bothered to deal with it, doesn't mean those unpleasant tasks will never have to happen. You will die. Someone will have to decide what will happen to your body, track down your account numbers, sort through your stuff, cancel your Netflix. You not doing it because it's hard or it's tedious or it's uncomfortable doesn't make the problems, the to-dos, and tedious life inventory tasks go away. You not doing it just makes it somebody else's problem, and frankly, that's just mean. Sure, talking with your people about your wishes might be awkward. Yes, thinking about what should happen to your body is hard. Tracking down all of your account numbers might be tedious. But you not deciding what should happen to your body doesn't mean those decisions will never have to be made. You are just making your people do it. Making them make difficult decisions at an already difficult time while you're incapacitated or right after you've died. Choices they might spend the rest of their lives wondering about. Did they make the right choice? Is it what you would have wanted? Yes. It might be hard for you, but what makes you think it will be any easier for them? In fact, if you don't make a plan, it will be so much harder for them. You are guaranteeing they won't have the knowledge, access, or information they'll need. Not only will they need to do the work of wrapping up your affairs, which will always be tedious and emotionally draining, even if you've made a plan, they'll not only have to do that work, but they'll also have to do a load of extra work just to figure out where your accounts even are. You're making it so much harder for others to deal with all of the stuff you couldn't or wouldn't or didn't want to deal with. Don't leave to others what you didn't want to deal with in life. Again, maybe not exactly a rousing pep talk, but I think it's important to be honest. My goal isn't to dishearten you, but I want to set proper expectations, maybe with a side dish of encouragement, helping you know where to start so you don't let overwhelm keep you paralyzed. So start estate planning today, not later, today. Later may be too late. So maybe I've now reaffirmed what you maybe already believed. Estate planning is overwhelming. I've also hopefully convinced you that it's also really important. That is a confusing place to be. So what now? I can't make estate planning simple, although it likely isn't as bad as you think. But I can give you a few things to remember as you get started. Things that will hopefully make estate planning a little bit more approachable. It's harder and more stressful knowing you have to make an estate plan and avoiding it than it is to just make your estate plan. Like going to the dentist or doing your taxes, knowing it's a task looming over your head creates epic amounts of anxiety. Deciding to do it creates its own anxiety. Where do I start? Who can help me? How do I begin? But getting started is almost always the hardest part. In many cases, the process is pretty straightforward, and you'll feel much better having it done, and your people will very much appreciate you having done it. And even when problems arise during the estate planning process, once you're in motion, you will have a clearer understanding of the problem, not just a generalized what-if anxiety. And you'll feel better having done it. I promise. 2, ask yourself, what do I find myself thinking about? There is so much to be done when completing your estate plan. Documents to complete, passwords to document. It can be hard to know where to start. One question that I find helpful when trying to figure out where to focus the attention or where to start: when you think about aging or dying, what do you find yourself thinking about? This is usually a pretty good indicator of the areas of your life where you feel the most out of whack and where you could likely benefit from a little attention? Answering that question will help point you in the direction of where to start. 3, know that there is no single right or wrong choice. One element that makes estate planning difficult is that it isn't and can't be cookie cutter. Your life, your assets, your goals, and what you want to accomplish are unique to you. There is no single right or wrong choice. There isn't only one way to do things. There's only what is best or most appropriate for you and your situation. Although for some people, that actually might make estate planning a little more overwhelming. To each their own. Number 4, very few things are set in stone. With very few exceptions, your decisions and your documents are not final. Documents can and should be reviewed and amended or revised if you change your mind or if or when your circumstances change. If you realize later that you prefer things be set up in a different way, it can be changed. Number 5, you don't necessarily have to start with the most important and likely the hardest stuff. There are certain aspects of estate planning that are vital. For example, if you have kids, you should write a will and nominate a guardian for your kids ASAP. But I don't necessarily suggest that you start there. Get to it sooner rather than later, definitely, but don't start moment 1 there. Why? It's the same reason why I don't think you should start on a black diamond route the very first time you go skiing. It's hard. It's more logistically challenging in many ways, but it's also emotionally wrenching. Estate planning always involves you considering a lot of things you likely don't want to consider. But if you're making end-of-life planning decisions that will affect your minor children, that's an entirely next-level emotional challenge. You're considering that your death will happen sooner rather than later and that you won't get to see your kids grow up. On the degree of difficulty level, that is off the charts. So one option is to not start day 1, minute 1 with the hardest things, even if they are the most important. With a few practice exercises, a few trips down the bunny hill, to go back to the skiing metaphor, it becomes a little less daunting. So don't start with planning for your kids. Try planning for your pets or your plants. Are those things more important? No, absolutely not. Do you still need to plan for your kids sooner rather than later? Yes, absolutely. Planning for your pets or planning for your plants are warm-ups. It gets you used to the idea of end-of-life planning. It gets you used to the idea of somebody else having to step into your life and take care of things that are important to you. It gets you thinking about what you value in the people in your life and those who are most likely to take care of your things in a way that are most similar to you. And once you've done a few of these other less important things, you've not only completed a few end-of-life planning tasks and gained a little momentum, you'll likely be more prepared emotionally, logistically, and practically to tackle the really important and really critical things. Number 6, you might want to start with things you don't care about. Estate planning requires you make a lot of decisions about a lot of things. You might have strong opinions about what you want for some of these things. Other times, you may have no idea what you want, but you know what you don't want. Other things may just make you shrug. Who cares? Sometimes starting with those last 2 categories is a lot easier. You might not have strong opinions about some elements of your estate plan. That's perfectly okay. I was recently building out my When I Die binder and got to the section on funerals and memorials. Personally, I do not care in the slightest if there is a funeral for me or if there is, what it looks like. But funerals are also for the living. So if the people in my life feel that some sort of memorial event will help them, By all means, do whatever it is they need or they want. But what I absolutely do not want is for my people to spend any amount of time worrying, considering, or fretting over what I would have wanted. So in the funeral section of my When I Die binder, I'm giving my people permission to not care. If there are things they want to do or that they would find beneficial, great. I am all for it. But if they don't have any strong opinions, I've made it clear I don't have strong opinions either. Hopefully, in that moment, it will give them a little peace of mind. If there are items that you don't have strong opinions about in your estate plan, make sure that's documented. Give your people permission to not care about things that aren't important to you. Somewhat related, you might want to start with things you know you don't want, because some people are a lot more clear about what they don't want than what they do want. I know this was the case when I was completing my advanced care directive. I had a really hard time thinking about and documenting what I wanted, but I was really clear on a few things that I absolutely did not want. If you are having trouble knowing what you want, start by documenting what you don't want and work from there. Are there things you know you do not want to have happen if you're incapacitated? Are there people you do not want making decisions for you or getting your stuff? Start with a few things you know you want and a few things you know you don't want. With these goalposts set up on either side, it might be a lot easier to work from there. Number 7, start by documenting what you don't have. Ideally, you're on your way to completing a full and documented estate plan. You'll then discuss what's in it and where to find the documents with your people. But if you aren't there yet, you can start with the easiest estate planning task ever. Take out a piece of paper and something to write with and document what you don't have. I don't have a will, I don't have a trust, whatever it is for you that you do not have. After a death, countless hours of sleep are lost to different versions of the same question. Did Dad not have a will, or can we just not find it? Mom talked about setting up a trust. Did she never get around to it, or can we just not find the paperwork? If you don't yet have a complete plan, documenting what you don't have will save your people the time and stress of endlessly looking for things you don't have. Just keep this list updated as you start building out your plan and complete your documents. Number 8, generally speaking, something is better than nothing. There are some elements of your estate plan that need to be complete, signed, and legal. Your will, for example, you need to jump through the hoops and untangle the red tape to make sure it is done correctly. Your living will is similar. If your state requires your witnesses fit certain qualifications, your witnesses have to fit those certain qualifications or your document will not be valid. I am not talking about those legal documents here. Those documents need to be complete, legal, and valid. But there are many other elements to your estate plan. The elements that I largely put under the umbrella of your When I Die binder. This is one document that does not have to be 100% complete. It doesn't have to be witnessed. It doesn't have to be notarized. Even if you only document where your bank accounts are and the name of your lawyer, those are a few things your people won't have to hunt down later. Documenting something will give them something to work with and not facing a blank page. And finally, consider how your estate planning tasks might benefit you in life. Your estate plan will be beneficial to your people after you die. Hopefully, it won't be needed for decades. But unfortunately, that's also a common reason that some people have for not doing any estate planning. It's hard to consider hard things and do all of this work for some vague benefit that likely won't appear for years. But your estate plan isn't only for the benefit of others decades from now. Many of the tasks that are part of estate planning or that put you in a better position to complete your estate planning are things that you should be doing anyway. I hate the word adulting, but it's the word that comes to mind. Consider starting with a few estate planning tasks that also will help you lead a more organized life today. Things like decluttering your real or digital life, creating a home inventory, documenting your online life, your subscriptions, your usernames, your passwords. Document your accounts and the location of your important documents. If you put all of these things in a single location, you have yourself the makings for your very own When I Die binder. Did I make estate planning a little more approachable, or at least a little less scary? I hope so. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and also consider hitting the subscribe button for regular end-of-life and estate planning information.